She sat in the police station for 9 straight hours, holding a photograph that nobody cared to look at. Her name was Monica Fields, a mother from Atlanta who believed the system would help her find her daughter. But that system had already closed its eyes. When Detective Mark Hensley brushed her off with the words, "Your girl's probably just run away," Monica didn't know that 15 years later, that same detective would be sitting where she sat now, begging someone to believe him. Because sometimes justice waits until it's too late. It was a cold Thursday evening in Atlanta, the kind of night where the rain blurs the neon lights and people hurry past one another without making eye contact. Inside Precinct 9, the air smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. Monica clutched a worn photograph of her 16-year-old daughter, Ariel Fields. Bright smile, curly hair, braces still shining under the sunlight. She didn't run away, Monica said, voice trembling. She was supposed to be home by 7. It's almost midnight. Detective Mark Hensley, tall, graying, and tired, didn't even look up from his computer screen. He'd seen this story 100 times, or so he thought. Teenage girls do this all the time, he muttered. Give it a day or 2. She'll come back. Monica's eyes filled with anger. A day or 2. She's never spent a night out without calling me. Mark sighed, finally lifting his head. Behind his badge, you could see the impatience of a man who thought he'd seen it all. Look, Ms. Fields, I'll file the report. All right? But we got bigger cases right now. I can't put a unit on every runaway. Monica stared at him in disbelief. She wanted to scream, but something told her it wouldn't matter. She walked out of that station in silence, her shoes squeaking against the wet tile floor. Outside, the city lights glowed like false hope. That was a night she learned that when a black mother cries for help, sometimes no one listens. Days turned into weeks. The posters Monica taped to telephone poles were torn down by rain and indifference. Neighbors whispered. Friends stopped calling. Every night, she sat by her window, watching the same streetlight flicker outside her apartment, hoping to see Ariel's shadow walk by. Then one morning, she saw something. A missing persons flyer, another girl, same age, same neighborhood. And under it, written in permanent marker, no one cares until it's theirs. That sentence stuck in Monica's mind like a blade. She went back to the station, this time with evidence. Ariel's phone data showed her last location near a bus depot on Auburn Avenue. Monica, there were cameras there. You could check the footage. Hensley shrugs. Those tapes overwrite every 24 hours. Even if she was there, it's gone now. Monica, you didn't even look. You didn't call anyone. Hensley, because there's nothing to find, Ms. Fields. He leaned back, arms crossed. Sometimes people don't want to be found. That sentence shattered her. Monica walked out trembling. But as she opened the door, she turned back and said something that would haunt Mark Hensley for the rest of his life. One day, detective, you'll know what it feels like to have your world disappear, and no one will care. Months passed. No updates. No arrests. Just silence. Monica quit her job at the clinic. She spent her days searching alleys, questioning bus drivers, pleading with reporters who never called back. Then one afternoon, as she handed out flyers near the edge of Old Fourth Ward, a man in a gray hoodie stopped her. His voice was low, nervous. You looking for that girl? Huh? You seen her? No, but I seen someone take her. Monica's breath caught. What do you mean? The man looked around, then whispered, white van, no windows. Same van been hanging round the school. Ain't the first time. He handed her a crumpled napkin with a scribbled address, Sawmill Road. Before she could ask another question, he was gone. Sound. Bus drives by, drowning out her voice. That night, Monica called the detective again, voice shaking with urgency. Detective Hensley, I have a lead. Someone saw a van. Ms. Fields, we've been over this. It's connected. He said it's not the first time. Mark rubbed his temples. Tired. You need to stop interfering with police work. You're not doing police work, she snapped. You're waiting for another body. Good night, Ms. Fields. That was the last time Monica ever spoke to him. And for 15 long years, the city forgot her name. but not her pain. 15 years later, Atlanta had changed. New buildings, new police chiefs, new headlines. Detective Mark Hensley was now Captain Hensley, respected, confident, and a father to a teenage girl named Emma. One morning, as he left for work, Emma called out from the kitchen, "Dad, I'm staying late after choir practice tonight." "All right, pumpkin. Don't be too late." He smiled, unaware that this would be the last time he'd ever see that smile again. That night, Emma never came home. Her phone went straight to voicemail. At 2:13 a.m., Mark received a message from her number. "Don't wait up, Dad. I'm fine." But when they pulled the traffic cam footage near the school, his heart stopped. A white van, no windows, license plate missing. And just like that, the detective who ignored her mother's cries was about to live her nightmare. Rain pounded against the cracked windows of the small diner on the edge of Briarwood. The neon sign outside flickered, open, even though the town had never felt more closed off. Detective Naomi Trent sat in the corner booth, her trench coat still damp from the storm. A half-drunk cup of coffee steamed in front of her as she flipped through the worn case file of Sierra Coleman, the girl everyone seemed to have forgotten. Across from her sat Evelyn Coleman, Sierra's mother. Her eyes were red from crying, her voice hoarse but steady. "They said she ran away," Evelyn muttered, staring into the rain. "But my daughter wouldn't leave me. Not like that." Naomi's eyes flickered over the autopsy photos, the police reports, the grainy security footage. Something didn't add up. Timelines were wrong. The witnesses were contradictory, and the coroner's report had been signed by someone who didn't exist. "Evelyn," Naomi said quietly, "how long after Sierra went missing did they close the case?" Evelyn's jaw tightened. 48 hours. Naomi froze. "That's impossible. They are supposed to wait at least 7 to 2. Evelyn gave a bitter laugh. "In this town, they don't follow rules unless it helps them sleep at night." Later that evening, Naomi parked her unmarked car in front of the old courthouse. The place looked abandoned, just a few dim lights in the upper floors. But she knew the truth. This was where the real decisions were made. Inside, Sheriff Carl Dunn sat behind his desk, his hands clasped, his expression unreadable. "Detective Trent," he said, forcing a smile, "you're digging into old ghosts again." "I'm looking for the truth," Naomi replied. He leaned back. "The truth is, that girl got mixed up with the wrong people. You do best to leave it alone. This town doesn't like its secrets dragged into daylight." Naomi tilted her head. "You mean your secrets?" The sheriff's smile faltered. "Careful, detective. Not every case deserves to be reopened." She stood up slowly, and not every sheriff deserves a badge. As Naomi walked out, she didn't notice the security camera in the corner, its red light flickering faintly. Someone was watching. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The house creaked with the weight of memories. Sierra's room was untouched. The posters on the wall, the bed neatly made, the stuffed bear on the pillow. She sat by the window, clutching her daughter's old phone, scrolling through the messages for the 100th time. Then, suddenly, something she'd never noticed before, a draft message, unsent. It read, "Mom, if anything happens to me, look in Mr. Hart's shed. Don't trust the police." Evelyn's heart stopped. Mr. Hart was the town's most respected man, a church deacon, business owner, and longtime family friend. Her hand shook as she called Naomi. "I found something," she whispered. "You need to come. Now." Naomi arrived within minutes, her flashlight cutting through the dark. The shed behind Mr. Hart's house stood silent, surrounded by tall grass. The padlock looked new. Naomi motioned for Evelyn to stay back, then picked the lock with a careful twist. The door creaked open. Inside, the smell hit them first, something rotten, chemical, metallic. Evelyn covered her mouth as Naomi shone her light across the room. Tools hung on the walls. Jars lined the shelves. And in the far corner, a pile of burned clothing. Naomi crouched, brushing aside the ashes until she saw it. A half-melted phone case, pink with a silver S. Evelyn gasped. "That's Sierra's." Naomi's chest tightened. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "This isn't just murder," she said quietly. "It's a cover-up." Just then, Headlights swept across the yard. A black SUV pulled up, unmarked, government plates. Two men stepped out, wearing dark suits. Naomi reached for her badge. FBI, she called out. The taller agent held up his credentials. Special Agent Ramirez. You need to step away from that shed. Detective. Evelyn's eyes widened. Why? What's going on? Ramirez's voice was calm but firm. Because we're Tevis and it doesn't just involve this town. It goes much higher. They met later in a dim motel room. The rain hadn't stopped, and neither had Naomi's questions. Why is the FBI suddenly interested in a missing girl from Briarwood? She asked. Agent Ramirez slid a file across the table. Because your sheriff, Carl Dunn, has been on our radar for months. Human trafficking, falsified records, and obstruction of justice. Sierra Coleman wasn't his first victim. Evelyn's breath caught. You mean there are others? Ramirez nodded. At least 6 girls, all dismissed as runaways, all connected to the same local businesses and the same people. Naomi clenched her fists. Hot shed, it's a dump site. But Ramirez looked uneasy. That's not all. Hart used to work for the sheriff's office as evidence custodian. Naomi's stomach dropped, meaning he knew exactly how to make things disappear. Just then, Evelyn's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You should have stayed quiet. Her hands trembled as Naomi read the message. They're watching you, Naomi whispered. Before Evelyn could reply, the motel lights flickered out. The power died. A single sound echoed through the darkness, the crunch of gravel outside. Naomi grabbed her gun and moved toward the window. Through the rain, she saw it. The same black SUV, only this time, no FBI markings. She turned back to Evelyn. Stay down. Gunfire shattered the glass. Naomi hit the floor, pulling Evelyn behind the bed. Bullets tore through the walls. The attackers didn't speak. They didn't need to. Someone wanted the truth buried. Again. Minutes later, silence. Then the sound of engines retreating. Naomi crawled to the window, her heart pounding. The SUV was gone. Evelyn was shaking, her face streaked with tears. Naomi dialed Ramirez's number. We were attacked. They knew where we were. You tell me that's coincidence. But on the other end, silence. She hung up and looked at Evelyn. We're in deeper than I thought. Evelyn whispered, what do we do now? Naomi stared at the flickering motel sign outside, rain still pouring. We find Sierra's truth, she said softly, even if it kills us. But as they left the motel, Naomi didn't notice the black drone hovering above the parking lot, recording their every move. And hundreds of miles away, in a dark federal office, a man in a suit watched the footage on a monitor. He smiled faintly and whispered, let them dig. They won't like what they find. The morning after the motel shooting, the sky over Briarwood was gray and heavy, the kind of sky that felt like it was hiding something. Detective Naomi Trent drove in silence, the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers barely covering the sound of Evelyn Coleman's quiet sobs in the passenger seat. They had barely slept. The motel room was in ruins, their nerves shredded. Naomi's phone still had no service, a detail that wasn't an accident. Whoever had come for them knew how to cut them off. Where are we going? Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. Naomi's eyes stayed on the road. Somewhere no one's supposed to find us. My old partner keeps a safe house outside the city. Evelyn nodded, though her hands gripped the seatbelt tight. Do you think Agent Ramirez is okay? Naomi hesitated. I don't know, but I intend to find out. When they reached the cabin, a small, weathered structure hidden among pine trees, Naomi immediately checked the perimeter, her gun drawn. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. Inside, Evelyn sank onto a chair, clutching Sierra's phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. Naomi went away, booting up her encrypted laptop, cross-referencing FBI databases she still had access to. Then, something caught her eye. A document flagged as classified, Internal Affairs. The file name, Project Harvest. Naomi frowned. It was linked to Briarwood County Sheriff's Office, and the list of contracted participants made her blood run cold. Sheriff Carl Dunn, Reverend Thomas Hartmayer Elwood Hayes. and at the bottom, Agent Daniel Ramirez. Evelyn noticed Naomi's expression change. What is it? Naomi turned the laptop toward her. It's a list of everyone involved in covering up disappearances, including FBI agent who swore he was helping us. Evelyn stared at the name, disbelief in her eyes. No, he saved us. Maybe, Naomi said grimly, or maybe he saved his operation. They didn't hear the knock at first. Soft, hesitant. Then again, louder. Naomi drew her gun and crept to the door. Who is it? She demanded. A familiar voice answered. It's Ramirez. Evelyn froze. Naomi exchanged a wary glance with her. Prove it, Naomi said. Ramirez's voice was calm. You told me in the motel that Sierra's truth would kill us. I told you it already has. Naomi hesitated, then unlocked the door halfway. Ramirez stepped inside, looking disheveled, his jacket torn, blood on his temple. They turned on me, he said. My own team. You were right. This goes higher than I thought. Naomi kept her weapon raised. You're on that list. Ramirez didn't flinch. I know. It's not what it looks like. They embedded me to investigate the corruption inside the Bureau. Briarwood isn't just a small-town scandal. Detective, it's part of a national ring. Evelyn's voice was small. A ring of what? Ramirez hesitated. Then, organ trafficking, using missing girls as cover. They falsify police reports, bury evidence, and sell what's left to hospitals and private labs. Sierra stumbled onto something she wasn't supposed to see. Evelyn covered her mouth, choking back a cry. My baby. Naomi's jaw tightened. You're saying the sheriff, the mayor, the church, they're all in on this. Ramirez nodded. And someone even high is protecting them. Someone federal. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Every time she blinked, she saw Sierra's face, smiling from her missing posters. Behind her, Ramirez and Evelyn whispered. Ramirez was showing her documents, autopsy reports, photos, transaction ledgers. But Naomi's instincts buzzed. Something wasn't right. She checked her phone again. Still no signal. But her GPS tracker blinked red. Someone had found them. Ramirez, she said quietly, did you bring your phone here? He looked up, confused. No, I tossed it after the motel. Evelyn frowned. Then how did they find us? Naomi followed the blinking signal to her laptop. The file she'd opened, Project Harvest, was transmitting data. It's not a document, she whispered. It's a beacon. Just then, headlights swept across the trees outside. Get down! Naomi shouted. The cabin erupted in gunfire. Wood splintered, glass shattered. Naomi dragged Evelyn to the floor as bullets punched through the walls. Ramirez returned fire, shouting into the chaos. Within minutes, the shooting stopped. Tires screeched. The attackers were gone, but the cabin was wrecked. Naomi's ears rang. Ramirez's shoulder was bleeding. Evelyn was sobbing. They are not going to stop, Naomi said, helping Evelyn up. They want the evidence destroyed, and us with it. Hours later, they were back on the road, bruised, shaken, but alive. Evelyn stared out the window. If this is all true, how many mothers are out there, like me, waiting for their daughters to come home? Naomi didn't answer. She couldn't. Her phone buzzed suddenly. One bar of signal flickered on. A message appeared from an unknown number. It read, "You're looking in the wrong place. The bodies aren't buried. They're beneath the church." Naomi's breath caught. She showed it to Ramirez. He stared at the message for a long moment. That's impossible. The church burned down last year. Evelyn turned, her eyes wide. No, it didn't. Naomi frowned. What do you mean? Evelyn's voice broke. They said the church burned, but I saw lights there last week. Cars parked outside at night. I thought I was imagining it. Ramirez looked at Naomi. Then we know where we're going next. They reached St. Matthew's Church just before dawn. The once beautiful building loomed like a skeleton against the pale sky. Its windows shattered, its bell tower blackened by soot. Naomi pushed the door open. It groaned like something alive. Inside, The air was damp and heavy, the smell of decay unmistakable. Ramirez swept his flashlight across the floor. Burned pews, fallen beams, and beneath them, a trapdoor. Naomi's pulse raced. She knelt, brushing away ash. "Help me open it." The metal ring was rusted, but together they pulled until it snapped free. A gust of foul air rushed up from below. Evelyn gagged. "What is that smell?" Naomi looked down the ladder into the darkness. Death! She descended first, her flashlight slicing through the gloom. The tunnel beneath the church was narrow, lined with old stone. Then, the beam caught something, rows of metal tables, surgical equipment, plastic bags tagged with government codes, and in the far corner, refrigerated storage units. Ramirez climbed down behind her, his face pale. "This isn't just a burial site," he said. "It's a lab." Evelyn's voice echoed from above. "Naomi, what do you see?" Naomi swallowed hard. "Evidence." She opened one of the storage units. Inside, documents, not bodies, financial transfers, signed authorizations, and photos of officials shaking hands with hospital directors. At the bottom of the pile, a folder labeled Subject SC-01. Evelyn's voice trembled. "What does that mean?" Naomi looked at the photo inside. A teenage girl, smiling, familiar, Sierra Coleman. And beneath her photo, a stamp. Experimental, do not disclose. Naomi's knees buckled. Evelyn screamed, collapsing as she saw her daughter's name. Ramirez stood frozen. Naomi whispered, "They didn't kill her right away. They used her." Before anyone could speak again, a sound echoed from the tunnel entrance. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. Ramirez aimed his gun. Someone's hair. The flashlight beam caught a face emerging from the shadows. Sheriff Dunn, smiling, his badge glinting in the dark. "Well," he drawled, "looks like you'll finally found the town's dirty little secret." He raised his weapon. Naomi's finger tightened on her trigger. The world seemed to stop breathing. The underground chamber went still. The air felt heavy, suffocating. The hum of the fluorescent light flickering above sounded like it was counting down to something inevitable. Sheriff Carl Dunn stood at the entrance of the tunnel, his gun steady, his eyes cruel and calm. The man's face, half shadowed by the beam of Naomi's flashlight, looked more like a mask than flesh, emotionless, hollow, unbothered by the death he carried with him. Naomi Trent kept her weapon raised, her voice steady. "Drop the gun, Carl. It's over." Dunn smirked, stepping closer. "Detective, I've been hearing that same line since this all began. You really think one cop and a grieving mother are going to bring down 20 years of business?" Evelyn Coleman was shaking, clutching her daughter's file to her chest. Her lips trembled, but her eyes were blazing. "You murdered my baby." Dunn tilted his head slightly, unfazed. "No, I didn't murder her. I delivered her." The words hung in the air, like poison. Ramirez's voice broke through the silence. "Delivered? To who?" Dunn chuckled. "You already know. Agent. Your bureau friends. The hospitals. The lab pretending to save lives while buying souls." Naomi's hands tightened on her gun. "You're lying." Dunn took another step forward, gun still trained on him. "Then why do you think you were sent to Briarwood? You think your bosses didn't already know what was going on here? You were never supposed to solve this case. Detective, you were supposed to bury it, like the rest of us." Naomi's jaw locked. "That's not who I am." Dunn smiled wider. "No, but that's who they'll make you look like when they find your body down here." He fired first. The shot cracked through the tunnel like thunder. Evelyn screamed and ducked. Naomi dove sideways, the bullet missing her by inches, slamming into the wall behind her. Ramirez fired back, hitting Dunn's shoulder. He stumbled, but didn't fall. "Go!" Naomi shouted. "Evelyn, run!" Evelyn bolted toward the stairs, clutching the file. Ramirez stayed, returning fire as Naomi rolled behind a metal table. Another bullet hit the ceiling light. Glass shattered, plunging the chamber into a flickering half-darkness. Naomi crawled forward, her flashlight rolling away, its beam landing on something, an emergency gas valve on the wall, marked danger, inflammable. She looked at Ramirez, then mouthed a single word. Now. Ramirez fired again, hitting the canisters behind Dunn. A burst of flame erupted, knocking the sheriff backward, his gun flying across the floor. Smoke filled the room. Naomi lunged, slamming him down and pressing her knee into his chest. He coughed blood, laughing even as the fire spread. You think this ends with me? You think she was the only girl? Naomi shouted over the roar. Who else was involved? Dunn's eyes glimmered with madness. You'll never make it out alive to tell them. Naomi's answer was cold. Then I'll make sure your name burns first. She slammed his head into the concrete. The sheriff went still. Outside, the early dawn air hit like a wave of ice. Evelyn was standing near the truck, shaking, holding Sierra's file like it was a piece of her soul. Naomi emerged from the church, covered in soot and ash, Ramirez limping behind her. The church behind them burned. Flames licking the sky, the sound of collapsing would echoing like an exorcism. Evelyn turned, tears streaking her face. What do we do now? Naomi looked at the folder in her hands. We take this to someone who can't be bored. Ramirez shook his head. There's no one left like that in the bureau. Naomi's gaze was hard. Then we'll make them listen. They drove for hours through empty roads, small towns, until they reached Atlanta, the nearest federal field office that wasn't compromised. But as they approached, Ramirez noticed the same black SUVs parked out front. They're already here, he muttered. They knew you were coming. Naomi pulled into an alleyway, her mind racing. They couldn't go through the front door. Not yet. Evelyn, Naomi said, turning to her, you need to disappear for a few days. Go somewhere safe, a church, a shelter, anywhere. Evelyn clutched her arm. I'm not running again. Not until they pay for what they did to my baby. Naomi hesitated, then nodded. Then we fight. Together. That night, Naomi used her old contacts in the press. People she trusted from back when she exposed dirty cops in Chicago. She sent them encrypted copies of Sierra's file, the project logs, the photos of the church lab. She wrote one line in the email. If anything happens to me, release everything. When the email sent, she leaned back, exhaustion washing over her. Ramirez sat across from her, reloading his weapon. They'll come for us, he said quietly. I know, Naomi replied. But when they do, the world will already know what they've done. Evelyn was by the window, staring at the street below. They took my daughter's voice. Maybe it's time the world finally hears a story. The next morning, the news broke. Headline flashed across every network. FBI investigation exposes human trafficking ring inside local law enforcement. Sheriff found dead after fire at abandoned church. Project Harvest linked to missing girls across 5 states. It spread faster than anyone could contain it. Reporters swarmed Briarwood. The mayor resigned. Hospitals went silent. And in the middle of it all, Naomi, Evelyn, and Ramirez sat in a dingy motel room watching the chaos unfold. For the first time in years, Evelyn smiled, faintly, but real. She's free now, she whispered. Sierra's finally free. Naomi smiled back, and she's not the last. But before she could finish the thought, Ramirez's phone buzzed. A new message, untraceable. You only burned one church. There are 6 more. The color drained from his face. Naomi met his eyes. Then this isn't over. Ramirez nodded grimly. Not even close. The camera of imagination pans out. The motel window reflecting the burning orange sunrise. The world outside waking up to truths long buried. Evelyn places a hand over Sierra's picture. Naomi holsters her badge. And beneath the hum of morning traffic, one haunting question lingers. How many more are still missing? They thought it was over. They thought exposing Sheriff Dunn's ring had ended the nightmare. But the truth doesn't burn that easily. Because every time you uncover one devil, another one crawls out of the fire. Evelyn Coleman sat at the small table, clutching her daughter's photo. Sierra's smile looked back at her, frozen in time, a child who never got to grow up. Naomi Trent watched her quietly from across the room, the weight of exhaustion hanging heavy on both women. Agent Ramirez stood near the window, phone still glowing with a message that chilled them all. You only burned one church. There are 6 more. He turned, voice tight. They're still out there. Naomi, these people, they're organized. Military precision. Someone high is protecting them. Naomi's jaw set. Then we find that someone. Evelyn's voice was quiet, but fierce. We end what they started. Naomi traced a line on the map they taped to the wall. Each red dot marked a missing child. There were dozens, all from small towns, all near abandoned buildings, old mills, empty churches, decommissioned hospitals. But one location caught her eye. A private medical institute on the outskirts of Atlanta, owned by Vanguard Biosolutions, a company linked to government research contracts. Ramirez frowned. That's too big to touch. The Bureau's got ties with them. Naomi stared at the map. Then we don't touch them. We expose them. That night, the three of them drove under cover of darkness. Back roads, headlights dimmed. Rain turned the asphalt to mirrors. Evelyn clutched Sierra's locket in her hand, whispering to herself. Naomi glanced in the rearview mirror. You don't have to come inside, Evelyn. I lost my daughter in one of these places, Evelyn replied. If there's another mother's child in there, I'm not staying out here. Naomi nodded, respect in her eyes. They parked behind the loading docks. Ramirez picked the lock, and the door creaked open. Inside, sterile hallways, humming machines, and the faint smell of chemicals. Evelyn's breath quickened. It smells like bleach and fear. Naomi whispered, stay close. They moved deeper into the facility, guided by the glow of a flashlight. On the walls, framed photos of charity medical missions. Children smiling, doctors shaking hands. But behind the polished smiles, Evelyn recognized faces. Girl from missing posters. Her stomach twisted. Those are them. Naomi took photos. Every picture's another piece of proof. Then they reached a heavy steel door. Mac, restricted access, Project Echo. Naomi swiped the stolen badge Ramirez had lifted from the sheriff's station. The lock clicked. Inside, rows of cold metal beds. Files stacked high. And in the center, a single computer terminal. Screen flickering with data. Naomi's fingers flew across the keyboard. Come on, she muttered. Give me something real. The files decrypted, and names began to appear. Sierra Coleman, Keisha Walters, Jade Porter, dozens more. Each file tag status, transferred. Evelyn's voice broke. Transferred where? Naomi clicked open a directory. The last entry read, recipient, project lead, Director Jonathan Reese. Ramirez froze. Reese? Naomi, that's your former captain. The realization hit like ice water. Naomi stepped back, shaking her head. No, he trained me. He taught me everything. Evelyn's voice cracked. Then he taught you how to cover his tracks. Naomi motioned for silence. Ramirez turned off his flashlight. They ducked behind the counter as two armed guards entered. Guard number 1. You hear about the sheriff? Idiot burned himself alive. Director Reese ain't happy. Guard number 2. He'll clean it up. He always does. Their footsteps faded down another corridor. Naomi exhaled slowly. Reese, she whispered. Here's the reason these girls vanished. Evelyn's eyes hardened. Then is the reason we finished this. Naomi walked in, soaked, eyes blazing. Ramirez trailed behind her, holding a flash drive. A receptionist rose from her desk. Can I help you? Naomi set her badge down. Hard. Get me Director Reese. Moments later, Reese emerged from his glass office. Tall, sharpshooter, silver hair, the picture of calm authority. Detective Trent, he said smoothly. Or should I say, former detective. You've been busy. Naomi's glare could cut steel. You're the one behind Project Echo. Reese smiled faintly. You really don't understand how the world works, do you? Those children were products of a deal between local law enforcement and medical contractors. No one cared until you started poking around. Evelyn stepped forward, tears burning her cheeks. My daughter was a product. Reese turned to her, cold, dismissive. Then you should have kept her safe. Naomi's voice dropped low. You're done. Jonathan. Reese's smirk deepened. You think anyone's going to believe a suspended detective and a grieving mother over me? Naomi reached into her coat and placed a flash drive on the table. They don't have to believe us. They just have to watch. She nodded toward the screen on the wall. It flickered to life. A live stream. Every journalist in Federal Division across the country watching. Ramirez had started the broadcast 10 minutes earlier. Every file, every photo, every connection between Reese, the sheriff, and Vanguard Biosolutions lived for the world to see. Reese's face drained of color. What did you do? Naomi's voice was steady. Gave your victims a voice. Security agents burst in. Reese tried to run, but Ramirez blocked his path. For the first time, Reese looked afraid. Truly afraid. Former FBI director arrested in child trafficking scandal. Project Echo dismantled. Hundreds of families reunited. Naomi sat on a bench outside the courthouse, her hands clasped. Evelyn joined her, holding a small bouquet of flowers. They found her, Evelyn whispered. Sierra's remains. She was buried near that first church. Naomi closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. Evelyn shook her head. You gave her justice. That's more than I ever thought I'd get. Ramirez approached with coffee, a weary smile. Reese is pleading guilty. Said is tired of running. Naomi looked out toward the horizon. The city buzzed with life. Children laughing, cars passing, the world moving forward. Evelyn placed Sierra's locket in Naomi's hand. For everything you did. Thank you. Naomi held it tight, the metal warm from Evelyn's touch. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from the system. Sometimes, it comes from those who were never meant to survive it. Evelyn Coleman lost a daughter. Naomi Trent lost her faith. But together, they found something greater, truth. And truth doesn't stay buried forever. Never underestimate a mother's love or a woman's fight for justice.